The richest people in your city own the same thing. It's not a business. It's not rental property. It's not crypto. It's something that costs less than your phone bill every month. And most people have never even heard of it. The wealthy don't talk about it at dinner parties. Financial advisors don't push it because it barely makes them money. But it has quietly created more millionaires than any other investment in the last 50 years. And the wildest part, you could have started buying it years ago for as little as $1. Nobody told you. That changes today. Think about what you were taught about investing. Probably nothing. Maybe you heard your uncle talk about a hot stock once. Maybe a coworker mentioned Bitcoin in the break room, and the message was always the same. Investing is for people with money to burn. That is basically gambling. That you need to know what you're doing, or you'll lose everything. So you did what most people do. You kept your money in a savings account earning 0.1% interest, or you just spent it. Because what's the point of saving $200 when rent costs $1,500? Here's the reality. About 61% of Americans own zero stock market investments. None. According to a Gallup poll, stock ownership has dropped to its lowest levels in decades among people under 35. It's not because young people are lazy, it's because nobody sat them down and explained how this actually works. The financial system wants you confused. Confused people pay higher fees. Confused people hire expensive advisors. Confused people do nothing. And doing nothing is the most expensive choice of all. Here's what an index fund actually is. Forget the fancy name for a second. Imagine you could buy a tiny piece of the 500 biggest companies in America, all at once. Not one company, not 10, 500. Companies that make your phone, companies that deliver your packages, companies that make your toothpaste. You buy one thing, and you own a sliver of all of them. That's an index fund. It's a basket. One purchase gives you a piece of every major company in the market. Now here's why that matters. When you buy stock in one company, you're gambling on that single company's future. If it crashes, you lose everything. But when you own 500 companies at once, some will go up and some will go down. But historically, the group as a whole goes up over time. The most famous index fund tracks something called the S&P 500. That's just a list of the 500 largest companies in the United States. Since 1957, the S&P 500 has returned an average of about 10.5% per year. Not every year. Some years it drops 20%. Other years it jumps 30%. But over 10, 20, 30 years, the average is roughly 10.5%. That's not a promise. That's 67 years of data. And the best part, you don't need to know anything about stocks to do this. You don't pick companies. You don't watch the news. You don't stress about earnings reports. You just buy the basket and wait. Now let's talk real numbers, because this is where it gets wild. Say you start putting $300 a month into an S&P 500 index fund. $300. That's $10 a day. That's what a lot of people spend on lunch and coffee without thinking about it. Year one, you put in $3,600 of your own money. With roughly 10% average growth, your account is worth about $3,780 by the end of the year. Not life-changing yet. But you don't stop. Year 5, you put in $18,000 total. But your account isn't at $18,000. It's at roughly $23,200. That extra $5,200 is money you didn't earn at a job. The market earned it for you while you slept. Year 10, you've contributed $36,000 out of your own pocket. Your account balance, roughly $61,500. You've nearly doubled your own money. And you haven't picked a single stock. You haven't watched a single financial news show. You haven't stressed about it once. Year 15, your contributions total $54,000, but your account is sitting at around $124,000. Read that again. You put in $54,000. You have $124,000. That means $70,000 appeared out of thin air. It didn't. It came from compound growth. Your money made money, and then that money made money. And it kept going. Year 20, you've contributed $72,000 total, That's $300 a month for 20 years. Your account value, over $230,000. Let me say that differently. You put in $72,000 of your own money. You got back $230,000. That's $158,000 in growth. Money that showed up because you were patient, not because you were lucky, not because you were rich, because you bought the basket and you didn't touch it. This isn't a hypothetical. If you had invested $300 a month into an S&P 500 index fund starting in 2004, you'd have over $230,000 by 2024. That's actual market data. So, if index funds are this powerful, why hasn't anyone told you about them? Because the financial industry makes almost nothing when you buy an index fund. The average index fund charges about 0.3% per year in fees. That means for every $10,000 you invest, you pay $3 in fees. $3. Now compare that to what the industry wants to sell you instead. Actively managed funds, where some guy in a suit picks stocks for you, charge about 1% per year. That doesn't sound like much, but on $10,000, that's $100. On $100,000, that's $1,000 every single year. And here's the painful truth. According to data from S&P Global, over any 20-year period, roughly 90% of those expensive fund managers fail to beat the simple index fund. You're paying them more to do worse. Financial advisors who work on commission have zero incentive to tell you about index funds. They earn money when you buy complicated products, whole life insurance, annuities, managed funds with hidden fees. The more confused you are, the more they earn. A Nobel Prize winning economist named the father of index investing once said something that stuck. The stock market is designed to transfer money from the impatient to the patient. The entire system is built to make you feel like you need help. You need an expert. You need a special account. You need their product. You don't. You need a basket and time. Now you might be thinking, that's great, but I don't have $300 a month. I barely cover my bills. And that's a fair objection. It's probably the number one reason people don't invest. But here's what most people don't realize. You don't need $300 a month to start. You can literally open a brokerage account today and buy a fraction of an index fund for $1. $1. Most major brokerages now let you buy fractional shares with no minimum balance and no commissions. That didn't exist 10 years ago. You couldn't have done this in 2010. Today you can. So here's a real starting plan. Step 1, open a free brokerage account. It takes about 10 minutes. You connect your bank account just like any other app. Step 2, set up an automatic transfer. Even if it's $25 a month, even if it's $50, automation removes willpower from the equation. You never see the money, so you never miss it. Step 3, buy one S&P 500 index fund. There are several that track it. Look for the one with the lowest fee, usually around 0.3%. Step 4, don't touch it. Don't check it every day. Don't panic when the market drops. The S&P 500 has recovered from every single crash in history, every one. The Great Depression, the 2008 financial crisis, the 2020 pandemic crash. Every time, it came back higher. Your only job is to keep buying and keep waiting. Even $50 a month for 20 years at 10% growth becomes roughly $38,000. That's $38,000 from just $12,000 of your money. The gap between doing something small and doing nothing at all is enormous. 2 people, same city, same job, both making $45,000 a year, same rent, same bills, same life. Person A hears about index funds and thinks, that's not for me. I'll invest when I make more money. So they wait. Every year they say the same thing. Next year I'll start. Meanwhile, they spend an extra $200 a month on things they won't remember in 6 months. Takeout, subscriptions, stuff that felt good for a moment. After 10 years, person A has nothing saved in the market. 0. Their bank account looks the same as it did a decade ago. They're still waiting for the right time. Person B hears about index funds and thinks, it's only $200 a month. I can find that. So they open an account and start. They set it on autopilot and forget about it. They don't check it every week. They don't panic during the dips. They just let it ride. After 10 years at roughly 10% average annual growth, Person B's account is worth about $41,000. They only contributed $24,000 of their own money. The other $17,000 came from growth. After 15 years, Person B has roughly $83,000. After 20 years, over $153,000. Same paycheck as Person A, same city, same rent. But Person B has $153,000 sitting in an account that's still growing. Person A has zero. The only difference between them is that Person B watched a video like this one and started. Most people never learn this, not in school, not from their parents, not from their job. The system doesn't profit when you know this stuff. It profits when you stay confused and keep paying fees for things you don't need. But you're not that person anymore. You just learned something that wealthy families teach their children at the dinner table. You learned that you don't need to be rich to invest. You just need a basket and time. This is not your fault. Nobody taught you this, but now you know. And knowing changes everything.